Hey pickleballers, and welcome to another episode of the PickleBros podcast. As always, thank you for your likes, comments, and subscribes. What's been really cool is recently we've met many of you out in the wild. So it's been really cool to be on the courts, have you guys come say hi to us. So never feel embarrassed or anything. So stop us, even if we're in the middle of the game, let us know that you are a PickleBros fan. Also, this is normally the part where I sarcastically mention that we are the sponsors of our own show. However, we have something of news in that regards. Stolp.
Yeah, we have officially teamed up with Carbon Pickleball, and we have a code that you can use at checkout. Use code PickleBros for 10% off your order. So, just excited that Carbon reached out. They saw our content. They like what they see, and they said, you know what, you should represent Carbon. And I know a couple of the bros out there use Carbon, but we have a code, so go out and use that. PickleBros, put it in your order checkout coupon code area for 10% off.
Indeed, we'll have that affiliate code in the description below. And now we're going to 3 out of the 4 bros. We'll be using a Carbon paddle, at least for now. We're not beholden to anything there, but we are going to try and convert Tim to yet another paddle here.
Oh my gosh, that's tough. That's really tough.
So today's discussion is going to be all things targeting and all things drilling. Things like how to know whom to target, what to do when you're being anti-targeted, which means your partner's being targeted, and then the PickleBros best drilling practices. But before we get into that, we're going to go through the DUPR check. Jesse, what am I sitting at?
Ian, you went up to 4.45. As I recall, you won a couple of games in the DUPR Flex League.
Yep, I'm playing with my brother, and we have eked out 2 wins so far. 3 more to go in the league, but really happy with it.
Nice job. I am still stuck at 4.53. I actually played 20 games last weekend at a tournament, which we'll talk about more shortly.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I did.
Okay.
But only one of those games has been reported to DUPR. So the other 19, I'm hoping will someday be reported to DUPR, but I'm a little skeptical that will happen.
I'll jump in. I'm 4.57, went up by 4 100ths in my DUPR rating. And Jesse, something is just hanging so heavy on my neck. I don't know what happened. But this new shiny accessory is hanging off my neck that's super in fashion this summer season. So, yeah, Jesse and I had the opportunity to play 4, 5, 30 plus at the WPT tournament in Denver, and we had a really good showing. So we will talk about that after Tim gives his DUPR check. But we did take a second and have this fancy schmancy silver hanging over our necks.
Nice job. So my DUPR rating has zigzagged a little bit since the last time we did this, and now I sit at 4.71.
Awesome. And Jesse, as Stolp just mentioned, some of our conversation today is actually formulated because of the experience you guys had at that tournament. Can you give us a perhaps brief, perhaps not so brief recap of how you guys did?
Right. So the format was double round robin, which I don't think I've ever done before. So there were 6 teams in the bracket, and we played all 5 of the other teams, and then we played all 5 of the other teams again, which was a total of 10 games. And it did give us a second look at each team, which was nice. The competition was good. Everybody was pretty solid, 4-5 or even higher in one case. I think there was one guy who was a legit 5-0. And it was a long day. It was hot. I had played mixed doubles on Saturday. Me and my partner, my wife, got a bronze, 3rd out of 11. So we're extremely proud of that. But that was a single round robin, 11 teams. So we played 10 games Saturday and then 10 games Sunday. And by the 20th game, I was pretty wiped out.
Double podium though, bro.
Yeah, I'm extremely proud.
Stolp, do you have anything to add on that?
Here's what I'd say. Great competition. And it was really, really cool just to see people, like you mentioned, out in the wild, Ian, come up to us and say, there's PickleBro Jesse. And I was like, you better watch what you say or we're going to put you on the podcast, jokingly. But it did add this level, additional pressure in a good way. I felt like we rose to the occasion, but there were some eyes on us and I wasn't necessarily used to that. But Jesse and I on Sunday, if anyone's ever seen Avatar 1 or 2, I swear we were avatars with those long ponytails just interconnected with our pickleball paddles, and we were one with Iwa, or one with pickleball in this case. And I just felt really, really in sync with Jesse that day. And this double round robin format, and we'll talk about this later today, but it just gave us an opportunity to see our opponents obviously multiple times and learn some things along the way, which really helped us, I believe, get on the podium, because there was some really skilled fellas in this division that if we didn't make some adjustments, I don't know if we would have had the same outcome. So I was really, really proud to partner with my PickleBro Jesse. I was really happy to bring it home for our fans. But it was a great time had by all, and very, very well run tournament. I know we've had some discussions in the past about tournaments versus pros and cons of that. Well, let me just sit here and say that it was a very well run experience. And I'll be back. So,
Kim, have you ever actually been in a double round robin format of what they just described?
Interestingly, the very first tournament that I entered was double round robin format, and I just figured they were all like that, because that was my first experience playing in one.
Yeah,
and,
I've only ever. Go ahead. Keep
going. What Jesse said. I love getting a second look at all the teams, because we got smoked by the team that ended up winning it the first time we played them. I mean, smoked. Like, this thing took maybe 15 minutes to finish up. And then we saw them again in the finals, and it was a different story. We still lost, but that's what's cool about that format, is being able to get a second look and learning from some of the things that were getting you destroyed the first time. So I like that format a lot, actually.
No, I fully agree. And I was actually going to say something very similar. I've only ever done one double round, but it was 6 teams, so you get the 5 games times 2 is 10. The first round always goes very differently than the second round. And part of that is because, as we've already all said, you get a second look at the bracket at everybody, and you can make different decisions. So, Jesse, I would like to know, and today's topic is targeting. How do you know whom to target?
Okay, so I'm gonna take credit for stealing Stolp's ideas here, because he told me what to do. But there was this one team we were playing, and we couldn't figure out who to target. And then Stolp noticed that they were stacking. And it seems so obvious, right? They're stacking. But I didn't really think about it. And sometimes you just miss the blindingly obvious in a tournament. Well, they're both right-handed. So sometimes, not always, but sometimes when there's 2 right-handed players stacking, the guy who's taking the left side of the court wants to take more of the court. He wants his forehand in the middle. So sometimes that person is going to be the stronger player. And in this case, that was what happened. And so we targeted the opposite player in the second round of the double round robin, and we did much better against this team. Some other tactics I've tried. One thing you can do just on the very first return of serve is you hit the return of serve just dead up the middle and see who takes it. And sometimes the stronger player will take most of the thirds. And then another thing you can do if you're still not sure is you can deliberately target one guy for a few minutes and then deliberately target the other guy for a few minutes and see which you like better. And I think that's better than just kind of randomly hitting, because it's harder to detect patterns. It's even sometimes hard to tell these guys apart, to be honest, from the other side of the court. I'm 53. I'm playing with a bunch of super athletic, good-looking 30-year-olds. They all look the same. They all look the same to me. So we try to come up with
just as good-looking, Sensei. Just as good-looking.
We try to come up with the nicknames for them. Like there was Straw Hat, and something that we could really put our head around to keep the guys straight.
I love that. Stolp, of those 3 strategies, avoid the guy on the left if they're both right-handed, run it up the middle, or just kind of experiment? Maybe hit one guy more often, see how it goes, then switch it up. Which ones do you find most effective or found?
Yeah, so you said pick just one. I'm not going to do that. I haven't played by the rules ever, so why start now? So we went 7-3, by the way, in this tournament. And the first go around on the round robin, we went 3-2, and then on the back half, we went 4-1. So just to share with that, just to the adjustments that were needed, the adjustments that were made, and in Jesse's particular example. Yeah, so what I did, look for stacking, target one and try for a few minutes each side, and then communicate like with your partner. This is how it happened in real time. Was Jesse didn't have a great feel of who to target in this match. And I said, hey, go after this guy. And he's like, are you sure? Really? Like, really? And we're looking, like you said, at two young 30s dudes that are physically fit. And I think we had some of this bias in our mind of like, this guy's jacked. I don't know if we should. I don't know if we should actually hit it to that guy. And it's like, no. I'm seeing some things. Trust me on this one, partner. Well, after getting obliterated in the first game, I think it was 11-5 or something like that. We lose in the first round robin. The second round robin, I say, hey, let's target this dude, and he's like, okay. And then we won 11-1. And after that game, it was just like, I didn't see what you saw, and I trust you, and it was actually, it vaulted us to the back half of the second round robin because we built more trust. So for me, Ian, it's watch what they're giving, see what they're doing, and then 2, if you can't see or notice anything, test and try, and then 3, communicate with your partner and have that open dialogue throughout. And if you need to make adjustments, you can, right or wrong, but be flexible. Like Master Sensei Jesse was, he thought otherwise, but I said no, and I was firm, and then he agreed, and we actually were successful because of that. So I think it's a combination of all of those things.
Awesome. What do you think, Tim?
That is awesome. I love to hear you guys, hearing about you guys talking it over and really trying to analyze what's going on so you can be hitting it to the right guy. But what's interesting to hear is, I guess I never really considered that. Is there always a guy to target? Like, is that always something that you're trying to do, even subconsciously? Because it seemed like Jesse was really conflicted, but it also seemed like that's something that he wanted to do if it was in the cards. But do you guys think that's always something that you're trying to do out there? Is try
I'll
to
take this,
find out who the weaker player is?
I'm going to take this, and then I'm going to kick it to you, Jesse. But so part of partnering with Jesse, like, this is one of the added benefits, or you get this as well as partnering with him. He researches the heck out of his opponents, which is such a overlooked strategy. I don't know if people out in pickleball world do that. So he saw the draw. He looked up everybody's DUPR score, go figure. And then he goes and looks at all the opponents. He looks at the tournaments he's played in, and then he logs in his mind, okay, do I know those people? Did I play in that tournament? What caliber, et cetera, et cetera. And then he came to me, and then he said, hey, this is what I've found. In this match, we should look to target this guy or test him. This is the first guy we should test because of these reasons. And in this match, we should go after this guy because for these reasons. And then if we didn't have any baseline data, I would say we then tested out the let's try, or what do we see? And then if it was equal or we couldn't tell, I don't think we had a targeting strategy. So it wasn't we target every time. We target when it made sense. And Jesse's research, and I do encourage anyone entering a tournament to do that, proved to be extremely valuable, because I hadn't had that experience Jesse had. I didn't know these players. I didn't look them up, but I trusted him, and it worked perfectly. So Jesse, I'm going to kick it to you. What do you think? Do you always target?
Well, no, actually, let's re-hone in on the question, because I think it's an excellent question. Is there always someone that you can target? Like, is there a targetable player, or is it sometimes 50-50? Jesse,
no, there's not always a targetable player, but sometimes one player will be better at certain things than another. Like, we played one team, do you remember there was this big guy and then there was this other guy that was lobbing a lot? And the guy that lobbed a lot had a weak backhand. So we tried to go to that backhand, but he wasn't really a worse player. He was a very good player. We just noticed him running around his backhand a lot. So it was kind of hard to target him, but it's just something you notice, right?
Yeah, and I want to throw it over to you, Tim, but they just touched on some things that I actually wanted to say on this topic. And the first one is the better player is not always the one who looks like the better player. You mentioned that the stronger, the weaker player, and again, it's a 4-5 tournament. So when I say weak, just the guy who's giving you less problems is this fit, CrossFit yoked, athletic guy. And you're like, oh, dude, I don't want any part of that. And he ended up, when you went after him in the second half of that round robin, you got a victory out of it. So one of the things I love about pickleball is it's not always, the book, the cover, right? It doesn't always tell the whole story. And also kind of what Jesse was saying is I don't necessarily think you always want to go after the quote unquote weaker player. I try to identify the things that they do that give me problems and avoid that. So for instance, Stolp, of the four of us, it's my opinion that you've got the least challenging third shot drop or third, right? Like whether it's a drive or the drop. Jesse's drop is so good. It's an automatic up at the kitchen. I don't want to deal with Tim's drive. And Jesse's shaking his head. No, Jesse,
it's definitely not.
It's an automatic up. And so between them, I'm like, all right, I'm going to pick Stolp because it's the most likely that I'm not going to have a hard shot. But I'm never, ever going to hit my third shot drop at you because your fourth attacking at the kitchen is second to none. And so it's like, I will never, even if it's Tim sitting there, I'd rather third shot drop over to Tim's side than hit the fourth to you because I know that you're going to make my day really bad and probably end the rally right there unless my drop is perfect. With Tim, yeah, it's still going to come back challenging, but I've got a better shot at it. So when it comes to targeting, you can also identify it. It helps to know the players, right? We know a lot of the guys in our local area. If you're going in cold and it's two guys from Denver, but it's not our area, there's not a lot you can do about it. But also figure out the things that they do that are challenging you and avoid it. But that doesn't mean always just they get no balls whatsoever. So Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to talk about that because in this targeting discussion, because I think I induce anti-targeting against myself, which plays right into my hand. So I'll have Louis beside me in that league play. I had Jesse beside me in this tournament because I am the very long, the very aggressive, the very, alpha hard-hitting closer type. That instantly in my opponent's head clicks into, I need to avoid that guy, which if I was them, I wouldn't do that. Like I would pressure me in different ways, like you said, Ian, with third shots and such. So Jesse and I talked about this leading up to it, not playing against any of these fellas before, and they said they're probably going to target Jesse because they see a gray beard or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah. And they had some subconscious bias about him, which played right into our hand because Jesse, as we all know, can comfortably dink back and forth, and I can just wait and then finish. Same with Louis. We had a league match in our last season where we had two young guys, athletic, like all-state tennis player level, but transferred into pickleball really, really well. They're talented, but they knew I poached. They knew I was aggressive, and they wanted no part of that. So what did they do? They hit 80 to 90% of the balls to Louis. And
he's a 5.12 per
good luck, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I'm sitting here doing like body deeks, right? Like, here I come. And it's like, oh, stay away from me. And I'm just praying that they don't target, like they keep the ball away from me because that played right into our hands. So just more of the around targeting and anti-targeting. I know we're leading into that discussion. It's the book, the cover does not always fit the book type thing, right? And I play off of that.
I agree with that. And I've noticed at the professional level, you do sometimes see people targeting Ben Johns rather than Colin. So I think
they don't let him free roam. That's what he's good at.
Right.
It might be different. Tim, I promise I'm trying to get over to you, but just vibing off that. What Zane and I found, my brother's like, he's bubble 4-0 player. when he gets the majority of the balls in our DUPR matches, we do better than when I receive them. We had one match where he saw the higher volume and we crushed him, and they switched their strategy to hit me more. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of locked down, and he has to be the free roamer, and he's just not as good at that yet, right? He doesn't have the pickleball experience. But Tim, I know you've got some unique takes on the whole targeting discussion. Why don't you finally jump in here? Give us your 2 cents here.
Well, I remember there was one instance where the bros were playing with each other, and it was me and Ian versus Jesse and Stolp, and this was probably the most stimulating conversation I had on the court at this point, or up to that point, because Ian and I were trying to strategize and figure out the best way to beat these guys. And it's kind of like what you guys were talking about. We knew that Stolp wants to lurk. Like, he wants to lurk and then poach and pounce. That's what he wants to do. So the fact that he was talking about those kids the super athletic kids that they played, and they were going after Louis. I'm like, not only does that make Louis better, it makes Stolp better. That's not a good idea, kids. And so Ian and I, we picked up on that in that match, like, hit it to Stolp all the time, make him play the ball, not just sit there and wait for his opportunity to use his superhuman length and strength. So you have to figure out just what these guys across the net are trying to do, what's going to make them the best version of themselves, and try to take that away from them. But there's also another aspect of targeting that I think is interesting. It might not be going after the weaker player. It might not be that simple. For example, we play with, we have some higher players in our group, and it's natural to go away from that player on a lot of shots. But the other thing that you want to consciously do, from my perspective, is you want to hit it to them once in a while, because you want them to be cold when they hit the ball. You don't want them to get a rhythm. Even if they're being anti-targeted, they'll find ways to get involved. So you have to keep them honest in that regard too. Make sure they get enough balls so that they can't strategize really at all. I found that to be incredibly useful. And you know what? I mean, I don't think that targeting is a particularly good form of pickleball. And I don't know how I feel about, there's always someone to target. That's always what you're trying to do out there. It's always a strategy. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. But I do think that if you're playing in a group where one guy is always anti-targeted, you might need to reevaluate who you're playing with, because that's not what you want. That should not be the goal. I understand that's absolutely what you're trying to do in most cases in tournament play or in league play, because it's all about winning. And as a matter of fact, most of our matches are all about winning. Like, they all matter to some degree, whether it's a DUPR rated match or Pride spreadsheet. I know we haven't used that in a while, but that used to be a thing too. But, we can have this conversation in the future about what it's like to move on from your group because you're sick of being anti-targeted. But that's kind of an aside. You do want to keep those guys involved, though. Like, you want to hit them that ball, because it'll work out for your team if you hit it to that guy and he's cold.
Yeah, so not only forcing him to be cold, but Tim, you also mentioned to me one time that you kind of look at, when it comes to targeting, you look at players psychologically. Is a guy shaken up? Is he off balance? Are they frustrated at each other? Like, how do you key in on those things?
To me, you can just tell. I mean, that body language really comes off, and it's noticeable. You see a guy, he's just like, you notice how the partners are talking to each other. Maybe one guy is sort of more assertive with the other guy, trying to build his confidence up, or maybe giving him a little bit of an attitude, because he's in his own head, or he's screwing up too much. Pay attention to how guys are talking to each other. That's a big indicator. Body language, is a guy slumping? Obviously, you can tell by the actual gameplay if this guy's missing a lot, if he's making a bunch of errors that are just super noticeable. I mean, that's an obvious one. But there's a lot to be gleaned from the body language too. So look at your opponents. Like, watch how they're behaving over there. Notice how they are when they first come out, so you can kind of see them at their norm. Or maybe you're getting nerve vibes when you're watching them in the warm-ups. But even if you're not getting those nerve vibes, that's still information that you're able to get from how they are in normal circumstances, so that if they deviate from those behaviors, then that's a tell.
Yeah, kind of when I first really started to play with you a lot, you keyed my focus in on this aspect. And so now anytime I see partners get frustrated with each other or have an argument or any sense of irritation, I turn to my partner and I go, there's dissension in the ranks, It's like in any way that you can poke that button, absolutely do it. Stolp and Jesse, are there any final thoughts on targeting here?
I do, just to these nonverbal partnership cues that you look for with momentum and frustration. So we were talking about anti-targeting. So if you, I've seen opponents, and I'll just use Tim for example, who has very distinct and readable body language. So if things are not going well,
the tornado,
it, and so you can.
It's not super subtle.
The thing about Tim though is like he can come back from that and attack and use it to his advantage. But if you're talking about target, okay, so I'm not targeting Tim's opponent in this case because the opponent, his partner's making mistakes. But if Tim's mad and his body language is telling that he's upset with his partner, and then I attack Tim and Tim makes a mistake, that's a compounding mess of errors that lead into a momentum shift for me and my partner. So if a partner's mad at their partner and you attack the guy who's mad and they make a mistake, a lot of times they implode. And so that's a good cue to look for as well.
It just makes me think we could probably spend an entire episode on the psychology of pickleball in of itself.
Can I just weigh in with 2 quick points before we move on?
Go ahead, Jesse.
One is, I think it's important to distinguish between rec play and tournament play. In tournament play, absolutely, targeting is fair. Targeting is smart. In rec play, you kind of have to read the room. And I mean, I anti-target Louis a lot, and I once asked him if he was okay with that, and he said he was. But if the top players get sick of being anti-targeted, they will leave your group. So you want to be sensitive to that. And then the other point I want to make is, I do look at DUPR. I do look at tournament results before a tournament. I want to get some idea about my opponents, but it's really important not to get too biased with all that, because DUPR, as we know, isn't perfect. And you have to look at what's unfolding before your eyes. And sometimes the person with the lower DUPR score is the better player.
Yeah, it actually came as a shock to me. Actually, that's not being silly. That there are parts of the country that just don't know about and don't care about DUPR. So it is not, and this will be an ongoing thing on the show, our care for DUPR, but not everyone that's not a great identifier all the time. But speaking of anti-targeting, Tim, I think you're one of the best that I've ever seen at dealing with an anti-targeting situation. Can you talk about how do you handle it when you're being anti-targeted? How do you help your partner when they're seeing just a volume that's just drowning them?
Yeah, it's not easy. And thanks for the compliments saying that I'm good at that, because it's really challenging and it can be really frustrating. Now, I was lucky enough to play in the league last year with our buddy Jared, and I don't even know if we had a conversation about this or if I was just really assertive and he just learned to get out of the way. But if you're being anti-targeted and it's a real issue and it's causing your team problems, and it's
wearing on his head,
well, no,
making him worse.
If you can't win without touching the ball, then something has to be done about that. And I think it really has to do with who's hitting that third shot. That third shot really sets the tone. And for me and Jared, a lot of times I would step way over it. I'm a left side player. He's a right side player. On that third shot, they try to find him. So it's a lot of cross court, acute angles over to Jared. And so what we started doing, we started practicing this. we would switch on that third ball. I would step over and take that forehand, and he would step over and be on the left side. Or he would just go all the way over to the right, like practically off the court, so that I could essentially be playing a game of singles off that third ball, so that I'm taking that forehand and just covering. There's a lot of court that I'm giving up there. So I better make that shot really good. And it's on me, frankly, if I don't, because there's a lot of open court for that team to attack.
Did that work for you? Giving up all that court space, did that improve your guys' dynamic?
So it's got sort of there's a couple of effects from that. So it did work, to answer your question. We got to the playoffs. I thought we overperformed, and Jesse gave his preseason predictions beforehand and did not think that me and Jared would do as well as we did. But it did work. We won a bunch of matches, and it gives me a lot of touches. Like, I get a lot of freedom. So if I'm hot that day, then things go really well, even if I'm having to cover a lot of ground. But what it also does, unfortunately, is it keeps your partner cold. It keeps your partner from getting confident. There's a reason why I picked Jared to be my partner. It's because he's good. So if you're not letting him hit the ball, you're not going to see the best version of Jared. So you really have to figure out, okay, how important is this? Like, how serious is this for you to take 90% of the court, you're starting with the third shot and then dictating play from that point? Like, how smart is that? Is that really going to lead your team to success, or should you really pick and choose your spots in that regard?
And who else is going to be okay with you taking 90% of the third shots? Like,
not many people.
I mean, I don't even know I know how good you are, and I'd be like, well, not 90, like maybe 60 or 70%, you know? Stolp, weigh in on this. Anti-targeting, how do you play it? How do you help your partner?
Yeah. I think I kind of touched on this earlier I pretend to be the one to anti-target so I can let my partner's strengths shine, because as an alpha and a clear-cut alpha, I always want to, I'm going to be the peacock on the court. Everyone knows I'm there type thing. But the truth is Jesse, as a beta in men's doubles, I know he plays the alpha role in mixed. Or Louis, they have better skills than me. You have to realize that. And I have to realize that. And so I play this peacock game where I'm a lot of show just so I become anti-targeted. So I'm kind of playing the opposite game as Tim. Tim's an alpha who wants the ball and needs his touches. And he just gave examples about how successful that is. For me, I'm like I'm a, oh, look, target me guy. And then really want you to play off of that, so you target my partner. So I am the anti-target, and so when I don't get targeted, I'm like, great, I win that. That's kind of how I play it, just because I have found such great partners to do that with. And Ian, you're no exception to that as well. I know you consider yourself a beta, but I feel like you can play that alpha role as well because you have such good finishing skills. But with me, like same thing is I want you to orchestrate points. And I think that by and large, if I can have my partner orchestrate points and then I lurk and finish, that's success for me when everything's clicking. So I want to be the one that is anti-targeted, and then have my beta next to me be the target, and that works well for me.
It's so interesting to me to actually have you lay out that alpha flavor between you and Tim, right? Or between you and Tim. Because both of you play the alpha role, but how you want the balls to come to you. You want to go after it. You want to free roam and choose your touches. Tim, you're like, I just need my touches. I want to be a black hole to it. Before I pass over to Jesse, kind of just my thoughts on the anti-targeting thing. I think is really important is if you're in that situation, meaning your partner is getting the volume of balls, you have to recognize they're going to have a decent amount of errors, right? They're getting way more touches than you. Everyone on the court knows what's going on, right? So that's more stressful. They know, well, crud, I've got to make more and more good shots. You just have to make more better shots. That's going to rack up the errors. And I think that one of the things I'm really tough on myself and I'm tough on my partners. Like, I think you all would agree on that. Just psychologically, mentally, I demand a lot from myself and from you guys. And so when you know that your partner is seeing that volume and you're getting screened out, you really should go out of your way to let them know, hey, it's okay. I see what's happening. Like, you're going to make some mistakes. I know when I was playing with Zane, we were playing our first DUPR match, and we were maybe in the second game, and he hit a really bad return long. And he turned to me. He was really frustrated. I go, dude, hold on. This is our second leg of this 3-game series, and that's your first return. I said, you get 5 more in this match, right? Like, I just told him, I said, you get to make more of these errors. And like, I could just see him calm down, like, oh, I'm allowed to make errors. I've got a certain amount in the bag. I don't have to always be perfect. So I think that's really useful. And then also let your targeted partner know, hit the ball in front of you, the anti-targeted player. When I tell Zane, feed that ball, when you hit that ball, hit it in front on my side of the court, because that's going to cause your opponents to hit a longer distance cross-court shot back to you, which is generally not going to be an attack shot, right? It's just going to be an extension of the rally. And when you put the ball in front of me, i.e., the stronger player, maybe something happens. Maybe they float it too high and I can get in there. Maybe they make a bad choice and redirect it at me, right? So definitely assuage your targeted partner's mentality and just tell them to get the ball in front of you and see if you can make something happen. Jesse, what's your take on this?
Yeah. So first of all, Stolp is being kind of modest about his abilities, but this peacock strategy only works if you're genuinely scary and good at the game. It's hard to dink against you, Stolp, because you can reach in and put away balls that most people can't. So it's not just a fakery. Okay, there's genuine talent underlying that. But I wanted to show 2 videos from our tournament this past weekend. I apologize to our listeners who can't see what I'm about to present, but I'll try to explain it so that it's reasonably clear. So the first one, let's see if I can get the technology right. Can you see this video?
Yep.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So this is at the WPT tournament. This was last Sunday.
Is that Straw Hat?
That is
Yeah.
Straw Hat, actually.
Okay.
That's the
Okay.
guy.
Both
Nice.
good players. Yeah, these guys are good.
Yeah, they're both solid players. This is me in the teal shirt, and this is Stolp. And we're just dinking with these guys, and they're targeting. Well, you'll see they're hitting the ball to me. I slowed it down to 50%. And I'm in big trouble here, right?
Those resets, though.
This guy's I'm just trying to survive.
I'm so impressed with your reset ability on
These
this.
are
Oh,
amazing.
yeah.
But look at Stolp. Look at what he's doing here. Do you see him? He's reaching over. He knows I'm in trouble. He's trying to save me. He's looking for the right ball to come over. And I finally get a good drop here. And then watch him come.
Your fade over behind him was also excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I just had such confidence in what he was doing, and I knew to go over. And we ultimately lost this point, but because Stolp was able to rescue me, we were able to get up to a point where we were more or less neutral in that point, and I was able to get back up to the kitchen. So I think that's a great example of what to do when you're being anti-targeted and you see your partner's in trouble. You have to look for a way to bail him out. And then here's an example from the same tournament where I think the decision to poach was not.
Wait, hold on. Was that video
Yeah.
directed by James Cameron? Because I felt like I just saw two avatars with their ponytails plugged into pickleball paddles. That's what it felt like.
Okay, yes. So this one, same tournament, same court, but different opponents. And this time, me and Stolp are on the closer to the camera. And we put me on the left, and this was deliberate because this guy here in the yellow shirt was the weaker player, and we wanted to put me directly in front of that guy and dink straight ahead to him because the guy in the white is extremely good, and we wanted to keep the ball as far away from him as possible.
These guys won gold, by the way.
Yep. Really nice third there by Stolp. And we come up, and this is our plan. I'm just dinking with this guy straight ahead, which is exactly what we want. And I'm very comfortable. I consider this my happy spot in pickleball when I can dink straight ahead to somebody. And he's dinking to me because he's afraid of Stolp.
Idiot.
So I don't mind that you miss a shot. I mean, we all miss shots, but I think that the judgment there was poor because this, unlike the first video, I wasn't under pressure. I was extremely confident, very comfortable. This is what we wanted. And I was prepared to do 50 dinks with this guy. And I think I would have won 7 times out of 10 just because I love playing straight ahead. And so in that case, in contrast to the first video clip, I wasn't in trouble. I think you should have waited for a more attackable ball.
Absolutely. And for those who couldn't see the video, what happened was Jesse got into the situation that we had planned. He was dinking forward with the guy in front of him that we wanted. And then greedy old alpha Stolp reaches in, just ill-advised, takes a ball away from Jesse and pushes it out of bounds long. So that was a case of bad decision making on my point. We lost that. Jesse, I remember explicitly what happened, or I specifically remember what we had a conversation. You're like, you said that's what we want, that's what we planned for. I'm comfortable, and you said that I can dink 50 times in a row with that guy. Let me do it. That changed the course of my mentality for the rest of that game and that tournament to let that happen. And then we actually executed very, very well moving forward. So sometimes it takes mistakes to learn from, and it's just about how you make those adjustments in game.
Yeah,
Sure.
and what's interesting about that is you guys were intentionally pursuing Jesse to be targeted. And so in that situation, I mean, as we're having this discussion, targeting, anti-targeting, not 100% of the time is the targeted player actually in trouble, right? Like we're throwing this negative connotation on there. And I do think the majority of the time that is it's relevant, because if you're being targeted and you can, crush another team, then good on you, right? Like you're not going to get into trouble. But in this case, it's like Jesse wanted to see as many balls as he could and go as deep as he possibly could. Jesse, any more thoughts on that?
Nope.
So it reminds me of, Jesse, I'm going to throw it back to you though, about a story where you and Sean were targeting the wrong guy. Was this up in Denver when you guys went up?
Yeah. So this guy was similar to Stolp. He was the more aggressive player. He liked to speed up. And so we went to the guy that we thought, oh, well, he just dinks. So we'll go to the dinker. That's more comfortable. And that's often what people do, is they'll go to the guy that has the softer game. But the dinker guy was a really good dinker, and he really knew what he was doing. And we ended up losing that game 15-5 or 15-4. I thought we would be competitive. I mean, if you looked at the DUPR scores and everything, we thought we had a good chance of winning. And we realized when it was all over, oh my God, we targeted the wrong guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it happens. It happens. It's tricky to figure out the targeting and the anti-targeting. But I mean, and at the baseline end of the day, can you hit your shots? Whether you're being targeted or anti-targeted, can you hit the shots that you need to as the moment dictates? I want to pivot now, though, over to our next topic, and that is of drilling. The PickleBros thoughts on drilling. Stolp, I want to start off with you because of the four of us, you've been playing pickleball the least long, I guess, like the most young span of your game time. How, I know drilling has directly impacted your game recently. Talk about that.
Yeah. First, before I do, we talking about practice? I mean, practice, not games, practice. I hope everyone gets that reference, because that's
I do.
Perfect.
No idea.
Perfect.
AI, baby.
Yeah, look it up. Allen Iverson. And practice? Come on, man. We're talking about practice. I was anti-drilling just because, you can see everything you need in competition. You learn from experience, just get more court time. Like, that'll make you better. And that's true. Like, there is some things that you just get through playing competitively with experience. However, drilling and how it's helped shape my game. So Jesse dissected a video of me and it was like, here's your weaknesses. This is what you need to work on. And first of all, I think you need a person in your life to do that for you. If you want to better yourself as a pickleball player, whether it's a coach, whether it's your friend, whether it's your partner, or whether whoever, just have someone transparently look at your game and give you feedback that you're willing to hear. So he did that for me in one of my competitive league matches, and I took that to heart. And one of the areas that he suggested is you need to focus on earning. You're so long, you're so aggressive. You need to learn that shot because
and athletic and can jump high and all this stuff.
Yeah,
don't short sell yourself.
Yeah, well, and he was right. Like, it's this aspect of the game that I didn't have at that moment in time, and I needed to learn it. Now, at this high level of play, 4 or 5 plus, we see Ernie's once, twice, maybe 3 times a day in a 2-hour session. It's not a lot. However, the Ernie does so much for your game, even off of the ball, that impacts your opponent's shots to keep it away from you in a front forward facing dink or returns.
It's a threat. It's
opportunity. A huge threat. So Jesse and I spent a full day practicing Ernies and what that felt like. And it's like, okay, with drilling and a specific shot, in this case, the Ernie, I got to see this hundreds of times in an hour and a half, 2-hour drilling session, to where I could understand what that feels like. I could look for the cues on what to look for, and then I could start to try and execute it in games. It was that one drilling session for an hour and a half that I incorporated into my game. And then for the subsequent games after that, I was doing it way too much. And this is the evolution of earning. You're like, oh, I have this shiny new toy. I want to show it off to my friends. And it's like, I try to do it too much. I do it at the wrong time, but it instilled this level of fear into my opponents to take that away from me. And then it targeted, going back to targeting, it targeted my partner in different ways. So then I started doing off-ball earning, and then I started executing earning. And then when you play with people who don't know you and you get an earning opportunity, it only takes one time to earning to where then you're scaring them. You're scaring them. Yes. So here's my point about drilling and however you feel about it. If you need to work on a particular part of your game, there's no better way to get hundreds of shots, hundreds of touches, hundreds of feel to build muscle memory. I heard somewhere it takes 60 hours to incorporate muscle memory into your brain. And so I was a pitcher in baseball for a number of years. And so that kind of sunk with me on working on different pitches. Is you gotta get reps, and you gotta get tons of reps. And there's no better way to get tons of reps besides drilling. You have to drill.
And Jesse, before I pass it over to you, because I want you to talk about because there's a reason we call you the sensei. Like, you taught me how to drill, Stolp how to drill. Tim feels a certain way about drilling, which we'll get to here in a little bit. But Stolp, I think you glossed over an important thing. Is you said you drilled it hundreds and hundreds of times, and then you immediately implemented it and went overboard. That's part of the learning process, because you say, okay, I can hit this shot. And then you need to apply it and say, here's when it works on the court. Here's where it doesn't. Here's what my opponents have to be doing. So yes, and we actually made a joke of it. It's like when you and I played together, all I did was dink to that corner to try to elicit earnings from you. And that's not a winning strategy. But I loved how you handled it for that week, 2 weeks after you did that session with Jesse. And you're just like, you drank the Kool-Aid, you went all in, and you applied it into the game scenario to now, I think you execute them, properly, appropriately, if you will. But Jesse, over to you. Give us your thoughts on drilling and what are the actual, drilling sessions. How do you implement gaining new skills?
Yeah. Can I just say that I have mixed feelings about teaching him how to Ernie, because now I have to deal with it when I play against him, and it's extremely annoying. Mm-hmm. So I like to drill, and I like to play too. And I think playing in actual games definitely is a wonderful way to progress, particularly if the other players are as good as you or better. If you're playing down, maybe not so much. But it's hard for me to play games every day all out. I'm in my 50s. It's just hard on my body. It's hard on my mind. So drilling is a respite from that, and I can still play pickleball, improve myself without the stresses of an all-out game. And some of the drills that are staples in my drilling routine, one is just cross-court dinking. That's what a lot of our rallies come down to, is cross-court dinking, and just doing that hundreds and hundreds of times. At our level, pretty much everybody could stand to improve at cross-court dinking. You may think you're good, but you can get better. You can get more consistent. You can get those shots a little lower, a little more aggressive, maybe putting a little spin on them. And sometimes when I drill cross-court, it's just cooperative. So, if my partner pops it up, I'm not going to put it away. But then sometimes I actually will gamify it, we'll compete, we'll do it as aggressively as possible. Another drill I like to do is straight ahead dinking, and we gamify that. We call the game Sniper. You guys, I think, all know it. So one person stands in front of the other. First, the serve has to land in the kitchen. The return of serve has to land in the kitchen. And then after that, anything goes. You can just keep dinking. You can speed up. You can lob. And this is a great way to practice speed ups, counters, lobbing, lob retrieval, everything. Just all around great for kitchen play, especially for people who are uncomfortable dinking straight ahead, which a lot of people are.
Ernie's, that's good Ernie practice.
Also excellent Ernie practice for sure. And then a third one that I love, it's a pretty well-known drill. It's called 7-11. So you have one person at the non-volley zone. The other person is at the baseline, and they play rallies and try to win the point. So the person in the back, they only have to get to 7 because it's harder. They're at a disadvantage. Whereas the person at the kitchen has to score 11 points to win. And it's great for transition zone work, resets. And I feel like I'm really good in the transition zone because of that game, that drilling game.
Yeah. Before I pass on over to you, Tim, my thoughts on it real quick. Just first I want to say, Jesse, I almost feel like, I owe you a permadebt, because when it was time for me to grow past the 4.0 level, like I was a high 3 to go into the 4s, you spent a lot of time teaching me the drill sessions that you do. You spent time doing drill sessions with me, teaching me Sniper, teaching me 7-11. And I just remember there was a month where basically I quit playing and all you and I did was drill. And then I started playing again afterwards, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a different player. I can go more than 6 dinks. Like, I can go for 60 dinks. Where did this come from? Like, it was just a complete evolution for me. And these things really matter. And I do want to say, you are still the king of Sniper and the king of 7-11 against me. And it was really frustrating when I was improving to have this old man who I did not know very well at the time constantly kick my butt. Like, I'm a young guy. I'm only 30. I shouldn't be losing these games. And dude, you are like, they're so invaluable to improving. And this is why you can handle playing in a 30 plus Denver tournament at 4-5. It's because you are so skilled and you've spent so much time doing this. I directly see it impact your game where, yeah, you may not be as young as you used to, and you may not have that foot speed or be able to produce the kinetic energy. But sometimes like, it matters, but it doesn't, right? You're able to hang with the best of them and the youngest of them. And that's due to these things. And I still have yet to beat you at a game of Sniper, which we need to do here so I can tell everyone that I finally I'm 0-300 against you, I suppose. But Tim, I know you've also, again, Tim's always got our unique takes. Kind of what's your takes on drilling here?
So I am probably the, I guess, smallest advocate, the least advocate, whatever. I'm not the biggest supporter of drilling, but if it's a choice between not playing at all and drilling, I'm absolutely drilling. And there are some drills that I really enjoy, but there has to be a level of competition to it. And there is a lot of the times. I mean, 7-11, and Sniper, it's competitive games that you're playing right there. The one that I like the best is skinny singles. I think that is really applicable to real game situations. But I find I'd be curious to hear how many tennis players, in their former lives, spend time drilling in pickleball, because so much of the muscle memory that you're trying to build in pickleball is already there. I hit the same kinds of shots in pickleball that I did in tennis. And a really good example of this, well, before I get to that point, there is a drill, and I think I mentioned this recently, that game Trash that I was telling you guys about, where there's an odd number of people, so we had no choice but to mix up our play a little bit. So we played this game called Trash, where it was all about keeping the ball in the kitchen with your third shots and then your dinks. Those were shots that were already there. That wasn't drilling to build any kind of muscle memory. That was drilling to change your mindset, because at that point, all I wanted to do was drive. That's all I wanted to do. That's all I cared about. It felt good. It felt natural. I had a drop shot in tennis that I'd pull off, once in a while, but it's kind of a niche shot in tennis. In pickleball, it's absolutely a necessity. You have to have that shot. But it took playing that game, which was a drilling game, to adjust my mentality and tell myself, okay, this is something that I need to incorporate in my game more. But that shot was already there. It was already in there. I don't have to go drill that for muscle memory. I just needed to change my mindset. But what I find from a lot of drilling that does not help me, and I'm not going to say it doesn't help other people, but doesn't help me, is I can't duplicate the pressure of in-game situations in drilling. So last winter, we did a lot of drilling, and I loved it because it was my first exposure to the sensei himself and the sensei heir apparent, who I still consider to be Ian. But it didn't translate to my game. I wasn't playing particularly well. It didn't translate to success, I should say. I didn't play particularly well in tournaments as we were doing those drilling sessions. It just didn't translate. So the muscle memory, if we're trying to build that, became muscle amnesia, because
Tim, didn't you practice lobbing at the kitchen the first time in those drill sessions?
Yeah, I guess you can call me out on that. That is absolutely well.
And your lobs are really good, and you were using them in games.
I think I've always done that to a certain degree, but I agree. I definitely upped the percentage of those kitchen lobs from drilling, because that's absolutely a part of sniper. But I just find that I'll take my two-hand backhand as an example. That's a shot that I just incorporated recently.
Like, it's so annoying. It's not fair that you just pulled that out.
I'm literally trying to be 15-year-old girl Annalie Waters out there now, because it's just, it worked so well, but I didn't drill it at all. I just started incorporating it into actual matches. But you know what? That's the same shot I hit for 30 years playing tennis. It's this exact same shot. So all these shots are there, but incorporating them into actual matches, it's real-time pressure. It's, okay, I need to be able to hit this shot. I need to be able to hit that spot on the court. It's just hard to duplicate the pressure of that in drilling. I know it's probably going to help to drill that, but if I can do it right off the bat in a pressure situation, I've already proven to myself that shot is there. This shot is something that I can use all the time, because I've just proven that I can do it in a match. So,
well, if the point is that drilling doesn't have enough pressure, maybe we should enter our drilling sessions into DUPR.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the answer. That makes everybody happy, right?
Yeah.
Good luck finding 4 people to agree to that. Yeah.
Tim was ranting about drilling one time. He said to me, he goes, "You don't drill for DUPR points." Maybe we should. Guys, we're right here closing in on an hour. Any final thoughts on targeting, anti-targeting, or drilling?
I just think we just found out that Tim is Allen Iverson of pickleball. Like, we talk about
Oh
practice.
my gosh, yes.
That's Tim. So I think I got a new nickname for Tim. He's AI.
You're AI, Tim.
Oh, yeah, sweet. I like it.
We got Stolp, Sensei, Heir Apparent, and AI. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be a wrap for the show. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the PickleBros podcast. Like, comment, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and all the places you find podcasts, as well as now use the code PickleBros when you go and buy yourself a carbon paddle. Really grateful to them to partner with us on that. So anyway, guys, we love you all. Stay safe and stay out of the kitchen.